So the guest today is Mer. I'll give a little bit up front. We've been friends for, I think we just worked out around 10 years. Kirstine and I have been here in the US for 13 and a half years now. So early on in that journey, we were in the House of Blues and saw this guy playing guitar and singing, and were introduced to him by a mutual friend of ours. And we've watched him since then. So I'll let you give a bit about background about yourself. I'll just sort of lead into it to say, you know, I've always been super impressed with how involved you are and how much you push and help local musicians in Chicago by running the showcase. You run a regular showcase. But I've also always been impressed with your guitar playing and your songwriting as well. So I've been super excited to talk to you, and thanks so much for coming along to talk on the website.
Yeah, my friend, this has been long overdue. We've been talking about this, I think, for the 10 years that we've been friends, but you know, life happens and all that stuff. But thanks again for having me, man. Yeah,
no problem. So one of the things, and we were just talking beforehand, is we've known each other for 10 years. What I don't know about you is how you started in music. And oftentimes when I'm interviewing people, I'll talk about families. Do you have a musical family? Mm-hmm. I want to start off with, so your family are Filipino.
Yep, right? 100%. Yep.
So, and what I don't know about you is, were you born in the Philippines or were you born in the US?
I was born here in 1978. I think we're the same age, buddy.
Same year as me. Yeah, exactly the same age. So, and growing up as a child, was music in your life very early?
It was the most amazing energy in my world from the very beginning. So, my parents immigrated here in 76 from the Philippines, and my dad is one of 12 and my mom is one of 9.
Okay. Wow.
My dad's family is the one that made it over here first, and they kind of like were the nucleus here in Chicago in the suburbs. And all of my aunts and uncles played music. It's funny, my mom and dad aren't musically inclined, but a lot of my dad's siblings are. And so growing up, our family parties were like literally talent shows. I'm not kidding. Like all the kids would put on skits and plays and do their little talent things. And then finally the closers, the aunts and uncles, would put on gigantic jam sessions and it would turn into dance parties. And it was the happiest I ever saw my grandparents. And just as a kid, like, I mean, I know you understand this, but the power of music is unbelievable, but you couple that with these people that are your biggest influences, and just to see your family all happy singing these beautiful songs and stuff that we grew up with, it was just amazing. So yes, music was my happiest memory from the very beginning.
And did you start playing early?
I did. So I started studying classical piano in like elementary school, maybe like 7 or 8, and my mom was really poor in the Philippines, and she was obsessed with the Beatles, always wanted to play piano, like loved Elvis, like just loved music, but she was just struggling to become a nurse. That was her dream, was to become a nurse. So when her and my father finally had the means to make it happen, they're like, guess what, kids? You're going to be musicians. And I'm like, you know, I've fought it just like everybody else and didn't want to practice, but then I just had a natural knack for it. And then as I continued to play piano, I got really good at it, and I realized like my brain is wired in a certain way, which we'll talk about the business brain later, because I know you can empathize with that. So process and, you know, a little bit of OCD, I got a little ADHD too, I think maybe.
Yeah.
But music really helped me make sense of all the things in my head and like just the wanting to do something. So that was great. But then puberty hit. And then guitars were always the thing. Like I really admired my aunts and uncles and my older cousins that played guitar, because I was a piano guy, and like, I don't know, it's just not as fun to jam on a piano for me as it is to watch my family play guitar. And then puberty hit, and like all the feelings, all the girl stuff. So I picked up guitar, and I technically taught myself first. One, because I had all the music theory in my head, and then, you know, just reading tablatures at the time. YouTube wasn't really a thing yet, but tablatures alone were enough for me. So that's how it, like, I built a foundation on classical music, which I'm unbelievably thankful for. And even in my mind, like I can transpose music, but sometimes it's just easier to just look at a piano keyboard in my head.
Yeah.
And it's just easier for me.
Yeah. It's laid out much more straightforward than a guitar.
It's the most visual instrument. Like where are the high notes, they're to the right.
Yeah.
Where are the low notes to the left, you know?
Whereas a C, it's right there. Yeah. And that's a C major scale. Just all the white keys.
All the white ones. Yeah. So like from a grid perspective, it's really easy. So I'm thankful for the foundation I built there, but guitar was what felt the most expressive, one, because of where I was in my life, teenage hormones, all that stuff. But also just, I mean, you've seen me perform. Like I have a lot of energy and I love to move, and man, there's something just unbelievably expressive about a guitar. Yeah. So that's the music. That's how it all started for me.
And were you classically trained on guitar as well?
Eventually.
I was going to say, because you write music, and what always impresses me when I watch you play live is the intricacy of some of what you're playing while you're singing, which is amazing in itself.
I appreciate that.
But you build into your songs, which are great, you know, singer-songwriter songs, great lyrics and everything. And then in the background, there'll just be some line that you would expect in Rachmaninoff or something like that on the guitar.
That.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I always notice that about you playing.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the music stuff, honestly, is to compensate for... I don't think I'm that good of a singer, and honestly, I don't think I'm that great of a lyricist. I think I feel confident in my like song structure writing. I think I'm really good at writing hooks. I think I can make the shit really catchy. And then most importantly, I love writing catchy hooks that anybody could listen to. But then I also love dropping that shit underneath it. Like, if you're a guitar player and you're paying attention, you're going to be like, wait, what the fuck did he just do?
What was that?
Yeah. I can swear on this, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, we can fucking swear.
Cool. Just checking. So, you know, for people like you that can hear both sides, like, oh, I like that melody or I like that chorus, but also like, what the fuck did he just do on that guitar part in the transition? That's what I like to do for myself.
Yeah.
She walked in from the woods, picked her up, she rode shotgun. Heart so deep she grabbed my soul, please just hold on. If I go with you tonight, your life will never be the same. Puts her hand on my chest with the dragon's breath, so fierce she made her claim. Now I feel the need to get close to you, whisper the things that I wanna do. Tell me yes, tell me now. You know what to do and how. I'll be, I will be your anything. I'll be the red wine when you're feeling sad. Me tiger, you can slash when you're mad. I'll be the dirty lips you kiss when you want revenge. I'll be, I will be your anything, yeah. Inhale, completely overwhelmed. She stares me down, all I know is surrender. Inflow, everyone knows her flame so bright inspires my fire. Hold tight to light up your night, possess you to carry a flame. Take one last breath before shit gets insane. 'Cause I feel the need to get close to you, whisper the things that I wanna do. Tell me yes, tell me now. I know what to do and how. I'll be, I will be your anything. I'll be the red wine when you're feeling sad. Yeah. Me tiger, you can slash when you're mad. I'll be the dirty lips you kiss when you want revenge. I'll be, I will be your anything.
We were talking before about like one of my favorites, Jason Isbell, and what I love when I listen to his music now and when you see him play live is the same kind of thing, right? I mean, that guy as a lyricist and you know, melody wise is great, but his hooks in his songs, it's pretty much all 1/4/5 stuff, and he admits that himself.
Yeah.
And then you'll get to a solo and you're like, holy shit. Like, what's this guy, what's he doing now?
Yeah.
And it's genius. Like, but it keeps it interesting, I think. It keeps it much more interesting to do stuff like that.
It's nice that he can do that, but like the 1/4/5 works. Fucking
it
Bob
does. Of
Dylan,
course it
John
does.
Waite. Like, that's storytelling.
Yeah.
But also for me, I'm a musician too.
Yeah.
I was a musician before I was a songwriter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's something, I don't know. I mean, and even I know you and your wife are huge live music lovers.
Yeah.
I want to, if I go watch somebody live, I don't want you to play the record verbatim.
No.
I want you to embellish. I want to hear some shit that I wouldn't hear. And I think you know this about me because you've seen me play the showcase enough. I love it when frontmen highlight their bands and give them the due respect of like, these people bring my music to life and they're fucking unbelievable and they play in the pocket for me. Yeah. But for a moment, I'm going to let them shine for a minute because they fucking deserve it. Yeah. I love that shit.
Yeah, me too. And we saw, I tell you who did it massively. We went to United Center and Kirst was shooting Eric Clapton. Oh, and the band he had out with him were unbelievable.
That makes sense.
And literally for half the show, he was stepping back and it was Doyle Bramall on guitar.
Yep.
I can't remember the guy's name on keyboard, but he was just stepping back and letting those guys do their thing. The other guy who I've seen do that a lot when Kirst's been shooting him is John Mayer. He does that with his band all the time.
His band's unbelievable.
Yeah, and he'll just step back and like, I can't remember the guy's name, but he's a Chicago guy who he has out with him on guitar a lot of the time. And every time we see him at the United Center, he's like, "This is your hometown guy," and just
everybody
lets him
loses
go.
their
And
shit.
yeah, it's awesome. But no, I really do. I agree with that. I think it's really nice when you see a frontman do that. Even
respect.
Even if you've got like a frontman like him who can, like Jason, who can play guitar the way he can, you know, he's still gonna step back and let Sadler play it and do that. It's important.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think then, when did playing turn to bands or writing?
Sure.
Your own stuff. Did you start in a band doing covers? Did you start writing right away, or?
I was always writing. The puberty thing was real, and it like I'll talk about the culture stuff, right? Like, there's a lot of beautiful benefits in growing up in the United States with a deep-rooted cultural background, like Filipinos. The Filipino culture is beautiful. The language, the food, just the culture. It's beautiful. But I dealt, mental health stuff, man. I dealt with a lot of stuff early on between the cultural gap. And then that's a huge culture shock from a very conservative upbringing in the Philippines to the way that my parents were parented and the way that they were parenting us versus what I saw my American friends doing. And I was the firstborn son of 3, right? Yeah. So I was the guinea pig-ish or whatever, and there's nothing negative about that statement. It's just the reality of the fact. Yeah. So the cultural gap alone was a big thing for me. So part of that is like, I didn't really have the relationship with my parents about being able to speak openly about feelings and emotions and where I'm at. It's just not a thing that we did. So music was the outlet where I could say those things and not get in trouble, or more importantly, just be heard. Yeah. So that was a huge emotional growth point for me, to be able to use music and guitar playing as a way to voice the things that I couldn't say. Yeah. So that's when songwriting became really a thing, of the struggles of being a teenager. And then the band thing became more evident through high school. So I actually put out my first album when I was a junior in high school. Really? My cousin had a recording studio, and between he and I, we recorded all the 10 tracks. The album is called Dreams. I think my mom still has cassettes of it. It was the first thing that full body of work that I did, and it was great. And like, my friends were my street team, and they would sell my cassettes in the lunchroom during the lunch periods. Nice. It was great. And I started booking gigs at cafes and stuff. So I learned the hustle. I mean, you know this about me, but I hit the hustle hard right away, because I had something to market and advertise. People validated it. And like, who in high school puts out a record and plays, not many people do. Early days. Not many people do that. Right. So I was really fortunate to do that. And then I didn't build a band until actually I went to college. I went to University of Illinois to just go visit some friends. Yeah. And I was playing guitar. Like, I was probably playing some Dave Matthews or Oasis. I was that douchebag in the girls' dorm, and then a couple guys walked by, and one of them was a bass player, and he's like, "Hey, I'm from Mount Prospect, Illinois." I'm like, "Holy fuck, I'm from Wheaton-ish. Let's get together." And that's actually how I first put my band together. This bass player was a jazz guy, jazz student, and he loved all, like, just like you, nerded out. Like, wait, you're not playing 1-4-5. You're playing some cool shit. What are you doing? And so that's how it started. And then the energy of a band, man, like, it just fucking opened up a whole new world. Like, I got really good and comfortable at being a solo performer. And I think, to go back to what you noticed about the guitar stuff, I think one of my gripes sometimes with singer-songwriters is that the guitar stuff or like the piano stuff they play is so boring that it just doesn't move. And I didn't want to do that. But then, man, you add a band to the mix, like, you have all the emotional dimensions to go as quiet or as loud as you want. That really opened up another level for me. And then just the excitement of playing with a fucking loud drummer and a guitar player. It was just a lot of fun. So that's how the next phase of the journey began for me.
I always say, and you don't want drummers to get big heads. And I know Rob, if he listens to this, will one of the drummers that I know. But a band itself is never a band until you get a great drummer. A great drummer is like the foundation of it. Never have I played in bands before. There's always that moment in a rehearsal room when it clicks, and it's normally once you've found the right drummer, and there'll be a song playing, you're like, holy shit, we sound like a band now. Like we sound like an actual band, and it's great. But drummers, I have a real thing for I obsess over watching those. I don't know if you ever watch the Drumeo stuff online, where they get the drummers in to just play a song that they've never heard before. I love that.
Just to hear what they do with it.
It's so fundamental, I think, to like a really good band. And it doesn't even have to be, a drummer doesn't have to be like super technically great. You know, you get someone who just swings the right way, or there's something about them, and it changes everything. And it's like, the example I'll give of that is like growing up. When I grew up, Appetite for Destruction came out, and I'd never heard anything like that album. And Steve Adler on drums, he's not the best drummer, right? But there's something about the way he played the drums on that album. And when he left the band, to me, the band was never quite the same again. And that's not to say that Matt Sorum, who joined, wasn't a great drummer, great, unbelievable, but it wasn't quite the same. And I don't know why I got onto drummers. I was just thinking about bands there and how fundamental they are to a good band.
I love that you know that, because whether people, it's like, here's the analogy that I tell people about drummers specifically. When you look at somebody and they like only work out their upper body and they don't work out their lower body, you visually are like, that looks weird. People don't know this, but if a band sounds sloppy, it's probably because the drummer's sloppy. And you don't know, you might not know because you're not a musician, you might not know why. But it doesn't matter how good the guitar solo is, and it doesn't matter how great the vocalist is. If the drummer can't keep a pocket, or is playing too busy, or just isn't playing what's best for the song. And I think that's what you're talking about, like Steve Adler. Absolutely. It's just like, what is their brand? What is their feel? And how do they naturally approach a song? Right? Like, I just had a friend down in Nashville that went to go see Ringo Starr at the Ryman. And he's like, you realize that like, he's not the most technical drummer. He's not Mike Portnoy from Dream Theater. He's not, Neil Peart from Rush. But he's motherfucking Ringo Starr, and nobody could have made the Beatles sound like that. And it's funny, the Beatles are this fucking super group, and everyone automatically defaults to Paul McCartney and John Lennon. But also equally, George Harrison is one of the best melodic ever guitar ever. And then Ringo Starr, nobody dropped a pocket onto that shit the way he did. Add to that.
And I mean, they're not gonna, they weren't gonna keep him in the band if he couldn't do that. I mean, he was just on the button. And then George, I mean, quite honestly, with the Beatles, George probably wrote some of my favorite songs in the Beatles.
Dude, Here Comes the Sun. That guitar part, all fucking. This is one of this, like, any guitar player should learn that just to see how beautiful that.
And that story, I think when he was living next door to Eric Clapton, who stole his wife.
Layla. Layla's about.
But I think it was him with Eric Clapton, and they'd been up all night, like drinking or whatever they were doing at the time, and he's like, I maybe get this story wrong, but I'm sure this is the story. Like, George is like, oh, let's go and watch the sun come up down at the bottom of the garden, which was probably like a huge field or something.
Sure.
And he's like, yeah, we went down there, and George took a guitar with him, and the sun started coming up, and he started playing chords, and it was "Here Comes the Sun," and that was when he wrote the song. But that is, I mean, what a genius song!
That's about as magical as it can get. And
My Guitar Gently Weeps. I mean, like,
oh
come
my
on,
gosh,
yeah, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, we digress. So writing was there right from the beginning, and I love, and I want to talk a bit about that because, like, I have friends and I have people that I meet, musicians and stuff like that, and they're like, "Oh man, I could never write that. It would just be terrible." I'm like, why do you care? Write it for yourself.
Yeah.
Like, because I can't tell you how incredibly helpful just putting something on a page is. It doesn't even have to be a song. Do a journal every morning. I do that. And I find that there's something, taking it out of your head and writing it down and putting it in words. I don't know why it does that, but it really, for my mental health, there's playing music, and there's running and exercise.
Yeah.
Those are the three things. And if I know at the moment I've got this feeling of anxiety constantly hanging around me, and I know it's because I've done no exercise since Christmas, and I know that's the reason.
It's hibernation time,
and I'm keeping it under control by playing guitar and stuff a lot. But yeah, good. I need to get back on the exercise. But that's what I always say, and there's tons of quotes about that, right? Just do it. If you want to write a song, write it. No one ever has to hear it. No one ever has to see it.
Right.
But I'll bet you'll get something out of doing it, just putting it on the page.
It's practice and exercise.
The more you do it, the better it will get. And then maybe one day you do want to put it in front of people.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think people go into it these days much more so these days with like, if I'm going to do this, it's because I want to be famous. And I think like, if you want to write a song, it should be about, like, if I wrote a song and I stood up in front of people and played it, and I looked into the audience and it connected with one person in that room, that would be absolutely enough.
That's it.
That would be enough.
That is it.
I think. And I think most songwriters would say the same thing. Like,
yes.
Like,
genuine
songwriters.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But it's, I think that from that mental health perspective, music, whether you're writing it, whether you're going to see it, I mean, I'm singing from the same hymn sheet as you, and people who've listened to me do interviews before will have heard me say the same thing over and over again. You know, we traveled around the country to visit independent venues because they're so important. During COVID, because of what we do and how many shows we're at, I really got depressed during COVID. I got depressed being locked in the house. I got depressed never getting to see live music.
Yeah, man.
I remember going to Austin. We went on our first trip after the COVID lockdown. We drove to Austin because we didn't want to fly. And by chance that night, there was a show on, and Kirst managed to go and shoot. She spoke to the publicist, and it was Lucas Nelson. And he was doing a warm-up show for his tour that was coming up. And we went there, and we were in a bar. It was the first time it was in Anton's. First time I'd been in a show that I didn't have to wear a mask. Wow. So we're in this room. Kirst shot it. She was still a bit uncomfortable in the room, so she went after the first 3 songs. I stayed in there, and I was stood in the middle of this room, and it was the first live music other than John Allegretto, who I saw down at Navy Pier. So I'll give him that. He was the first, and that did something to me as well. But I was stood in this room, I remember, and there was a woman next to me with a husband who was in a wheelchair, and they were dancing. Like, she was spinning him round in the chair, and he was like spinning her around. And Lucas was doing Diamonds in the Soles of Her Shoes.
By Paul Simon?
By Paul Simon. Oh
my gosh.
Magic. And I had to take myself to the side of the floor because I had tears in my... And that, it's
beautiful.
It's nice in your life when there's something like music can do that. Because I'm from Sunderland in the Northeast, right? You don't fucking cry when you're from Sunderland. Like, that's not what happens. And that music's probably always been the only way for me to access that side of myself.
That's beautiful. Like, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, it's kind of, and it so when you say like you used it early on in your life and it helped with that mental health side, I totally get that.
Thanks for sharing that. Hell yeah. That's why that shit hits, because I didn't write it for anybody else. I wrote it because I needed to get it out of my fucking head.
Let's get it out of head. Let's put it on paper, and it's the same with, like, take songwriting out of it. If I can't sleep because of something at work, there's something, someone gave me this as a tip. Like, whatever it is you're worried about for work the next day that's keeping you awake, Go and get a bit of paper and write it down on the paper.
Cool.
And you can go back to sleep because it's out. It's there now. You know you've got to do
You
it.
physically got it out.
I don't know why that works.
Thanks
but
for
it
that
works.
sharing that. I'm going to try that. Thank you.
It really does. Okay, so then when do you make the move to Chicago?
I mean, I've always been in and around Chicago.
Yeah.
I was born in Chicago proper on the north side, like Edgewater.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Yeah,
So
and
you were
then-
always in the...
Yeah. And then my parents just kept moving a little bit west. So I
Yeah.
spent like elementary school and the early part of middle school in like Lombard, Illinois.
Yeah.
And then they moved to like Wheaton, Winfield, where they still are. And
Yeah.
then I bounced back and forth. Like I went to Northern Illinois University in DeKalb for
Yeah.
a hot minute, but I wasn't really there. And that's when I dropped out and got that independent record deal and
Yeah.
started touring. But then as soon as I had enough money, I moved right back to the city and I
Yeah.
lived in Bucktown, Wicker Park, and like, you know, and then the kids came. So
Yeah.
there's just been evolution. But for most of my 20s, dude, I was on the road playing almost 200 shows a year.
I was going to say, so let's talk about that.
There's
so you
a
got
lot.
a deal, you got an independent record deal, and then went out on tour behind a record.
Not behind a record. So it was called an artist development deal. The
Yeah.
independent record label. I was really big in the college scene. So this is I graduated high school in 97.
Yeah.
Because we're the same age.
Yeah.
And then I went to Northern just to go appease,
Just to go to college.
just
yeah.
to go do the thing. But it was the best thing for me because I hyper networked like a motherfucker.
Yeah.
And then what was great is that a lot of my friends went to a lot of the Big Ten SEC surrounding schools.
Yeah.
So I got smart and I would just be at school from Monday through Wednesday.
Yeah.
And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I'd go out east and play the colleges out east. And then the next week I'd go up north and play the colleges north, out west, the following. And I just started playing all of my friends' colleges.
Yeah.
And they'd bring all their fraternity and sorority friends. And I would just slam these bars and these house parties. So I straight up guerrilla marketing, streets, boots on the street. I was just doing it, playing shows,
Yeah.
like house shows. And it was wonderful. So that's how that all started.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, like, we don't need to go to, so then obviously, you had kids, and then, because I know that's the other thing that I super admire about you. Like, we're friends on social media, and man, you're so involved in your kids' lives. Like the baseball, the soccer, like
Thank you.
you're so proud of those guys.
There's
And it shines through.
There's nothing else I want more.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
why that's the right thing. It just feels wonderful.
Yeah, yeah.
You know. But thank you for acknowledging that. Yeah, man.
And then on the side, so, and we've just been talking about this. So at some point, you know, you're all in. You're all in on the music.
Mm.
You're, touring round.
Yep.
You're on the road 200 days a week.
Yep.
And then at some point, things switch over a bit where you're like, I'm going to go into the corporate world. I'm going to make a go of this. Is there a black and white line, or was it a slow progression into?
That's a lot, man. So let's talk mental health, man.
Yeah.
Like I became a father by surprise.
Yeah.
And let's just lay out all the dimensions of this formula.
Okay.
28, I had my daughter by surprise.
Yeah.
30, I had my son by surprise.
Yeah.
18 months apart. They have two different mothers.
Okay.
So there's a lot already
Yeah,
right
there's a lot
there.
going on, yeah.
I'm a Jerry Springer episode, right? So that's why I appreciate you calling out the fact that I've made a conscious effort to show up as a
Yeah.
father
Yeah.
for these two amazing kids, and now I'm excited to talk about what they're doing. But
Yeah.
it was really hard, man. That was the next level of mental health that I just wasn't prepared for. And, I was making $40,000 a year
Yeah.
playing. I had to stop touring because one, it wasn't sustainable. The touring market had changed
Yeah.
in 2010.
Yeah.
It was a lot different than it was in 2000. So the economics were hard. The lifestyle was hard. And then I started playing local gigs, right? Like luckily, one of the beautiful things about Chicago, there's no city like it. I could play a cover gig every night of the week and make $300 each night cash,
Yeah.
right? So that's what I had to focus on doing, just to make sure I could pay child support, pay my
Yeah.
bills, and show up as a co-parent to these two different mothers
Yeah.
and these two kids that I fucking love. So it was really hard, man. That's when I really pushed hard into mental health, because I knew nothing other than the Myrrh brand
Yeah.
and that whole persona. So I had to put that down, and it was really fucking hard. So in 2013, my so a couple of years before that, right? Like I stopped touring. I was playing all the restaurant gigs, like playing a lot, and that's actually where Mer's Music Showcase became a much bigger thing because I wanted to maintain the brand and still maintain the original music thing, but I still need to make money. So that's when I was very localized, very regional, and then played a lot more cover gigs. But then I got to the point where, you know, my son was 5 years old and was about to start kindergarten full time. So my daddy daycare was over. Luckily, because of my lifestyle, I could raise the kids during the day, which is beautiful. I was really fortunate. And then at night, I'd tap out the moms. You know, we'd tap, and then I'd go play gigs at night. But then I'd go play, and I'd be fucking playing in Wrigleyville till 1 a.m. hungover. You know, I'd wake up the next day hungover. My kids would literally wake up and jump on my fucking balls to wake me up. And like, let's go. And it's like, you know, you got a puppy. You guys are just talking about the 5 a.m. wake up calls.
We've got no frame of reference with the kids, but we've got that, which is probably not.
It's somewhat the same thing. Like musicians don't get up at 6 a.m. The real ones don't. So that was a rough wake-up call. So anyway, lifestyle change. And I asked a bunch of my friends. So I was 35 years old, no college degree. In my mind, no real skills. Turns out I'm a pretty good fucking sales guy. We'll get back into that. But I asked a lot of my friends that were 35 years old, that were up in middle management, a bunch of different companies, said, you guys know what I'm all about. Where could I go make fucking money in corporate and get health insurance? Like that was the thing I never had either. And they're like, Murray, you could sell anything and get into technology. Technology, it's the most money for the least amount of work, technically, right? It's not a labor job. And you're a good enough storyteller where you don't need a college degree and you don't need a technical background. You just need to sell the dream and the strategy. I'm like, I could buy into that. So I got into Career Builder in 2013, doing inside sales. I was 35 years old with a bunch of kids right out of college, making 150, 120 phone calls a day, selling database access and like job postings and these job board things. And then I killed it there. And then I used music to help selling, and that was amazing. Then I went to LinkedIn, and then I got burnt out from that and did some startups. And then I went to Salesforce, crushed it there, then went to some startups, and then went to Microsoft, crushed it there, won awards, led the AI stuff, and then now we're here. So I'll stop there, but that I got you caught up on the job thing.
And that's super interesting. And then and that, I think, and one of the things we've talked about, one of the things I'm always interested to talk about here, given the state of the music industry at the minute, is how people keep a career in music, or a career, not even, it could be an interest, like, but really a career, because you're still a gigging musician. You are. And like, keep that and live a corporate life at the same time. It's super challenging.
It's two very different brains, and it's two very different schedules.
And it's, but you've done it, and I think what's come out of it is something really beautiful, because you've not only have you kept playing shows, you've kept writing, you've kept playing yourself, you've consistently, and you're known in Chicago. I mean, in the music industry, among songwriters, among artists, among us, people who listen to music, you know, people know you because you put on that showcase, and that's a lot of work.
Thanks,
like,
man.
Putting that on.
Thanks.
And bringing, you know, musicians out, some of whom, you know, you've introduced me to a ton of new musicians.
Fuck yeah.
Bring
My
them
friends
out there,
are awesome.
Have a great night on stage. You know, everyone's drinking shots. People are playing covers. People are playing their own shit. You all get up and play together. Some of those nights have been super memorable for me.
Thank you, my friend.
But it's nice to see that you've found that balance.
Thank you so much.
You've got that somewhere in the middle. Now, at the same time, we're talking about balance, and you mentioned you're Microsoft now, which I don't think you are anymore. But let's move on to another topic.
Sure.
That's another thing that I've talked about quite a bit with musicians, with managers and artists and stuff that we've interviewed on here, which is technology. And listening to these interviews, people have heard me talk about my view on Spotify, and particularly the way that it pays artists, and I don't like that much. We don't need to harp on that anymore. I think everyone will have a view on that. I know it's not as simple as I sometimes make it out. I know there are costs there, but the other thing that is on everybody's mind at the minute, the job I do, it's all anyone's talking about, is AI.
Yep.
you know, in the music world,
Mm-hmm.
in the writing world, and
Mm-hmm.
more broadly, right? People who write shows, people who write scripts,
Mm-hmm.
people who write music. Everyone, it seems, is petrified about AI.
Totally.
So, because they feel like it's going to do what they do, they feel like it's going to take away a job that they can do. Similarly to people in a lot of different roles. So, what I'm really interested to talk to you about, and I've kept up with, you know, you've talked to a couple of people, Greg Spero around Artist AI. And I saw you also spoke to, I'm going to get his name wrong, Gary V, I think he goes by, right? Gary Vaynerchuk. So both these guys are, I mean, Gary is kind of like a business whisperer, right? He's the guy who's in there early on everything. He's the guy who's telling people, don't sleep on this. And he's telling people from the interviews that I've seen, like, hey guys, you might not like AI, but you can't ignore it, right? What's going to happen with it is going to happen,
right.
And it doesn't. If you don't like it and you ignore it,
right.
then you're going to be like one of those 50-year-old businessmen who I saw that as a quote from him. One of those 50-year-old businesmen who wouldn't send emails back in the day and got his secretary to bring in the printout, right? That's going to be you with AI,
right?
Which I thought was a really brilliant way, by the way, of putting it into people's heads. And you are now sort of involved with Greg Spero and Artist AI. And I want to talk to you about this because this was interesting to me because this is a super positive thing.
Yes.
So Artist AI, from what I understand, and I'm going to let you explain, is effectively an AI tool to help musicians build engagement 100%. And track engagement on all digital channels. Yep. But I'll let you speak a bit about it because that's it.
Thanks for doing the research, man. And I'm actually excited to talk to you about this because I think you and I are quite similar in our execution on the day job stuff that, you know, again, like 18 years to you. Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
That's a big deal. But also like just our obsession about cool guitars. Like nobody can see your room right now, but like I drooled over your Martin and then you just showed me the beautiful vintage guitar from CME from your wife. Like that thing is what's a 67 Gibson?
67, I think, or 68.
Jesus, dude.
45. It's nice.
You married a good one.
Yeah, right. That's a good 40th birthday.
And she could take photos of you playing it. It's great.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm excited to talk to you about this. So Greg Spero is the founder of Artist AI, and I'm officially the co-founder. And I'm really excited, and thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to talk about this. So let me just talk, you know, AI is scary, but let me talk about one thing you mentioned is that musicians in this world today have to diversify revenue streams.
Yeah.
It's hard to just do one thing. So what Greg's quick background, he's a jazz pianist originally from Highland Park. He moved to LA in like 2013, 2012 to make it.
Yeah.
He wrote the come up with an artist named Halsey. Do you know Halsey?
Yeah, I know Halsey.
So he was her keyboardist and touring music director when she was nobody, when she was playing 100 cap rooms like Shuba's Tavern and Hotel Cafe, right? So he wrote the come up with her and built a brand for himself, and he's an entrepreneur, huge soul, focused on community, so similar energy as us. So that's his background.
Yeah. Just as, you know what? This has just popped in my head right now.
Yeah.
I think I might have sat next to him on a flight a few years ago, and we got talking about music because he was talking about either managing or playing with Halsey.
That's interesting. I wouldn't be surprised. He flies back and forth between LA and Chicago.
Because I had some like really, really super nice Shure in-ear headphones, which he recognized as being good headphones.
Oh,
and
I'm
then
sure
we started
he would.
chatting.
He would.
Maybe that was him. Maybe it wasn't. Sorry. Anyway, digress. It just popped into my head there.
That's
I'm
really
like,
cool.
I wonder if that was him.
Yeah. So here's the genesis of Artist AI. He reached out to me. So when I was at Microsoft, I was posting a lot of content about Copilot and what I was doing. So I was selling AI strategies, the first of its kind, into the financial services industry and healthcare. So highest level of integrity, highest scrutiny, you know, PHI, like medical records, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So like I was learning best of breed, first to market, and it was unbelievably exciting.
Yeah.
So Greg saw all the content. It's funny, you mentioned before we started recording, like, you didn't post a lot of music stuff for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
And it was all Microsoft. And I pushed all in on that. But Greg saw the content and he reached out to me, hey, dude, it's been a minute. I'd love to share with you what I'm up to as an early stage idea. One, would you use this as a musician? Two, from your AI perspective, is this legit? And I go, let's talk about it. So basically what Greg did is he took, during the pandemic, he took a bunch of public AI models like ChatGPT, Midjourney, DALL-E, Cyanite, Sonoteller, all these different things. Yeah. And he basically built an assembly line for himself to analyze, process, distribute and like try to get playlisting for his songs through all the channels that exist, like Spotify, Amazon Music, you know, and then using distributors similar to like DistroKid, CD Baby, TuneCore, right? So he created this Frankenstein model of an assembly line, so he could, in essence, upload a WAV file, analyze his shit, get all the copy paste shit to put it in the DistroKid, whatever, and then be able to just push it out automatically. Yeah. So one is just automation. Number two, what he did is he started to build his own quote unquote LLM, where he would study a bunch of organic playlists on Spotify. Yeah. So to get new visibility on Spotify, there's a couple of ways. One, you can pay a publicist, you pay editorials, there's places like Submit Hub. Yeah. Right. Right. So there's all these pay to play stuff that everyone's explored, and there's just no guaranteed ROI, and no one really has the budget to continue to keep that marketing spend. Yeah. Right. Like you and I know how to do that with businesses. Yeah. Artists don't have that budget. So what he did, so he used AI in two places. And he asked me, is this legit? I go, fuck yeah, it's legit. I'm like, what were the outcomes? He's like, dude, he showed me his numbers, Spotify for artists, and then he actually had his accountant send me his streaming revenue. In those 2 years, by releasing a song almost every week, because he's a jazz musician, had access to a recording studio, that's hard to do. He grew his monthly listeners from 1,000 monthly listeners to the height of 450,000 monthly listeners. Wow. Because of the repetition, constantly re-engaging the algorithm, and just doing it organically, right? Yep. No bots, no nothing. And then what that meant for his revenue is he went from making $5 a month in royalties, and over the last 6 months, I've seen his numbers. He makes anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 in passive income just off of his catalog being up on Spotify.
That's impressive.
It's fucking unbelievable. So here are the three things that I talk about, and it's really fun for me because I take all the 11 years of experience in selling enterprise technology in the Fortune 500s. Yeah. Now I get to do it for people that I fucking care about. Yeah. And here's my thing about AI. There's three things that we do. Number one, AI does not touch the creative process. What your output is your output. Yeah. That's yours. And we just take your master WAV file. Number two, the second way we use AI is it's called RPA, robotic process automation. Yeah. And all that was Greg's daisy chain of like, let's do all this shit. Because here's the thing. Here's what we've been able to quantify. If you go from start to finish of responsibly releasing a single, what we've quantified is 10 hours. Take the WAV file, get in DistroKid, all this stuff. And people are like, 10 hours? I'm like, here's what we're adding to that equation. We're pitching songs to human curators on playlists using propensity scoring to figure out where your song analysis has the best chance of getting landed. Yeah. Most independent artists and even managers don't put that much thought into getting their shit playlisted. We do. And if you were to do what we did for you, it would take you 10 hours. And they're like, fuck. So that's the second piece is RPA, robotic process automation. And then the third piece I mentioned is propensity scoring, right? So like, how do we use our historicals on what we've done successfully, match that up with the playlist where we think we can get a bunch of organic reach, and just do our best to play matchmaker. How do we get the curators to right swipe on your song, right? Yeah. That's the story that I tell. So one, we don't touch the creative process. Number two, it's just process automation. And number three, we're just trying to match up your song in the best place where we think you can get the most organic listeners. Yeah. So that's AI for us.
So this is purely, and this is great, right? Because it's so nice to have a conversation like this about, hey, here's something AI can do that is going to help you adapt to living in the modern music world, because this is where we are now, right? Yes. Whether you like Spotify, whether you don't, whether you agree with what they do, whether any streaming service, right? Apple Music, whoever it may be, that's where we are. That is where we are. Yep. They pay what they pay. And the key thing is visibility. Yes. And I hear it, right? We talked a little bit about a musician I know, Jack Browning from the UK. And I know when I speak to Jack, it's like just managing the algorithm in Instagram, managing whatever algorithm is in Spotify to get his music listened to. Yeah. It's a constant source of frustration.
It's a battle. You're going to battle every day.
He doesn't understand the difference between one thing will hit, one won't. And it doesn't. And I'm sure there are a million musicians in exactly the same position.
100%.
So to hear of a tool like that is literally saying to you, like 10 hours. I mean, what can you do with 10 hours? That's a huge time saving, right? Like we can take that part out of your hands and it's automated. It's we're going to do it for you. I mean, that not just to musicians, but if you're a manager of an artist, you've got to be thinking, man, that saves time on my schedule as well, so that time that I can spend on much more value add stuff. Yeah, like that would be how I'd be thinking of it if I was in the industry at the moment.
It's exactly. I want to add to that. You bring up a really good point. So managers, we've got a couple that are part of the beta, and we got a really great testimonial from this guy Colin Smith. He's out of LA. He manages a bunch of artists. Actually, do you know the keyboardist Cole DeGenova? He's originally from Chicago.
I think I know that name.
He's a badass. He plays with everybody. He's going on tour with Gallant right now. If you know Gallant. Like Cole's a motherfucker. So Cole, his manager, Cole introduced me to Colin, and one of the coolest things that Colin and other managers have said, it's like the 10 hours back. What would you do with it? Managers have told us, wow, I could either, what this does for me, it either allows me to take on more artists that I've been incubating and I'll have more time for them. Yeah. Or I could take the roster I have right now and push more into them so that I can elevate all of them up another level. You're just helping me become a better manager for them and create more opportunity, which is what they're paying me for anyway. Yeah. And if you can get me the same numbers, that if you can get me from my artist from $5 a month in royalties to $2,000 a month, it's a fucking win. And you're telling me you can automate that? Here's the outcome. Yeah. That manager can help more artists. Yeah, exactly. And that's it. That's what we fucking want.
Help more artists or provide more help to his existing artists. Yep. And but you've got to be forward thinking, right? Because it's easy at the minute to go like, fuck AI, like it's going to come in, it's going to take our jobs, use it. Gary says, like, it ain't going anywhere.
It's not.
Right? So you either get on the train or you left at the station. Yeah. That's how I see it anyway.
First adopters.
Like you've got to, and to hear a manager thinking like that, like, hang on, no, this doesn't take my job away. This potentially helps me do my job a shitload better.
And help more people.
Yeah, for more people.
Yes.
So it's really exciting to me. And it's like, I'm glad we got to talk about it and and just talk generally about it, because it's so interesting, like everything like coming through, from the Filipino family, dealing with that, using music as a way to get through that childhood stuff.
Thank you.
Using music throughout your life, I think, right? To help manage
every day,
manage mental health, using music to bring up others in this scene. And then ultimately now, through however many steps, you're the co-founder of this business that again is going to help musicians and managers. So I think I've kept you here a long time. Yeah. So that's, I think I've covered kind of all the points that I wanted to sort of talk to you about today. Maybe we make this more of a regular thing as you go on, particularly with Artist AI. I'd love to get you back in and hear you like further down the line.
Dude, I want to talk to you about it just because your background is a business background. I want you to validate and check me on this business model because it's exciting as fuck, man. I think you can relate to this. I'm at this really exciting phase in my life. I'm 46. My daughter is going to University of Kansas to be a nurse in August. Yeah. My son's a junior in high school. He wants to go to med school and has his eyes set for Boston College. Yeah. And I've fortunately, because of my intentionality and the work that I put in, like these kids are wonderful and they're going to contribute and they're confident and they know who they are. They know what they're going to do and I support them and will cheer them on. Yeah. At the same time, I'm at this cool life phase where like they don't need me in the same way anymore. Yeah. And now, dude, I'm excited to tell you this because you get this. I get to take the decade plus of experience in selling the best software for some of the biggest companies, and I get to apply all this shit that I learned there and always was like, why don't these resources exist for musicians and creatives? Now I'm building it, and now I go back to the very first thing I cared the most about before I became a father is music. Yeah. And now I get to feed back. I mean, you've seen, the only reason why I have a brand is because Mer's Music Showcase is about community, it's about original music, and it's about celebrating just the love and the value of music and independence of everybody. There's no competition. You all have a voice, you all have a place. Now I get to do that on the next level using tech to elevate that to another level, man. So I would love to continue the conversation with you.
I love it. And doing that's the dream, right? It certainly for me, to be in a role and use the skills that you've learned, but use it in an area that you've got such passion for. Yes. I used to... I'll close it out with this. It's kind of a sad story, but happy as well because it influenced me very much. I remember maybe 10 years ago, 8, 9 years ago maybe, I like watching TED Talks. I'll watch a few TED Talks.
Love them.
And I saw this guy who had started a website called Live Your Legend. I don't know if you ever came across him.
No.
And I can't remember his name. It's going to drive me nuts. But
I'll
anyway,
look that up. Live Your Legend.
Anyone who's listening to this, if you want to look it up, you can look it up. And he had this amazing idea, and he did this talk, and it really hit me hard, where he was basically just saying, if everybody could work in a role in an area for which they had a real passion, rather than sitting behind a desk doing something that might be a good job, and there are days when, I quite like this, but there are days when you're like, I've just got to get through it.
Yep.
Like his view was like, why do that? If you can work in a role in which you really have a passion for what you do, you're going to contribute so much more to society. You're going to be so much happier yourself. You're going to contribute so much more. And I followed him, and this is like, maybe I should write a song about this one day. Like, and that guy, he was so inspiring. I remember watching, he swam across from Alcatraz. He swam across the
channel.
The channel, and like one of the kids he was swimming with was like 8 years old or something. He did it on 9 years. He's told all these great stories. And then I remember going on the website I used to follow his website, and because it was inspiring to me, and it was making me think, like, do I make a change here? And I went on one day, and his wife put a message on, and they'd gone on one of his things he wanted to do was like a trip around the world, and they were going up Kilimanjaro, and a rock came down the side and killed him. Like, and I was like, isn't that because everything he said rang true with me. And I'm like, and it didn't make me think, God, you shouldn't try that because maybe that could happen. It actually made me think that could happen if you're doing something you hate. It could be just stepping out into the road and the car
hit
hits
by
you.
a car.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I was like, so at least that guy did it.
If you're
going to
go out,
he
how did he die?
loved.
He was hiking Kilimanjaro.
Yeah, hiking Kilimanjaro, and he died. And I mean,
it's sad.
It was a really funny thing to me because I'm like, that's so sad. But he had such a great message, and he went out doing something he loved anyway. So I was like, but I don't know. That to me is the phase of your life I think you're at. You know, like you're saying, your kids now. I mean, man, medical school, yeah. Did you don't go
nursing? She's going to nursing.
Did she go on a scholarship for softball?
You know
I
what?
was going to say because she's super.
She loves it, right? And she's passionate about it. But she's done with that chapter of her life. And I'll be honest, dude. She wanted to go. If she wanted to play softball, she could have and gotten all the scholarship money, but she would have gone to a smaller school.
Okay.
But I brought her to visit my goddaughter who goes to University of Iowa in Iowa City, and she's like, "Holy shit, this is a big school." I'm like, yes, love. I'll support whatever you want to do. Yeah. But like, this is what life could be like if you weren't a collegiate athlete and if you had the opportunity to use your education and your grades to go to a bigger school. She's like, I'm like, I support whatever you want to do. And she's like, fuck it, I'm going to go to a big school. Because she wants to go party. And I'm like, I can't fucking wait to bring Mer's Music Showcase to your campus. And she's like, oh, hell no, you're not bringing Mer's Music Showcase to my school.
And then when you're retired, you're going to have a doctor and a nurse to look after you.
They better take care of my ass for all the shit I did for them. Hell yeah.
Yeah, but as I said, I mean, you're in that phase of your life now when you're like, hey, let's do it. Let's take what I've learned here, and which is a lot from both walks of life, music and from the corporate world.
Yep.
Let's put it together and do something I love. So I'm super interested. Let's keep the conversation going.
I would love to, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for coming in.
I've been waiting, anticipating timing release. searching, learning and training, taming this beast. Time is nothing more, my shadow follows me where I go. Pain is my waking alarm. Wake up, it's time to go. Don't lose control. Gotta free my soul. I'm bulletproof, bulletproof. Open my chest. Gotta show you what's next. Bulletproof, bulletproof, yeah. I've been working, slaving and pounding, bleeding this beast. I've been smoking, waking and baking, feeding this need. Time is nothing more, my shadow follows me where I go. Pain is my waking alarm. Wake up, it's time to go. Don't lose control. Gotta free my soul. Bulletproof, bulletproof. Open my chest. Gotta show you what's next. Bulletproof, bulletproof. Don't lose control.